In analog motorcycles, Tony Prust builds bikes by day and manages music at night. Now he'll take an Italian bust and make it sing.
I convinced Sam this is a bike we should build.
It really is the worst.
But they typically come out exactly how I have them in my head.
It's encore performance to be judged by national champion racers Ben and Eric Bostrom.
All right, so we learned a lot out there.
I have an amazing job. I'm a drummer in a rock band called Chevelle from Chicago, and I play with my brother Pete and my brother-in-law Dean. My job of writing music and recording gets me out to see the world. I feel very fortunate. Tony's role with our band is he's our drum tech, monitor engineer, and stage manager, but it's his attention to detail, which is essentially, I think, what the band pays him for more than anything else.
For me, one of the things, with traveling and doing the same thing over and over again and living in a bus with the same people every day and, waking up with the same dramas every day, it ends up, I need an outlet.
The outlet for these best friends who travel the world making music is bike building. And their next project is an ambitious one, a Ducati-powered Bimota DB3.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Tony.
How you doing?
How's it going, Bruce?
How you doing?
Really well.
There she is.
There it is. I'm no expert on Bimotas, but what I do know is that they've never made an engine to my knowledge. They've always used other companies. Somewhere in the 90s, they kind of switched to primarily Ducati engines. And so they're a chassis company. They make frames, swing arms. Their main focus is always to make things as light as possible and functional. So I convinced Sam that this is a bike we should build.
Thanks, Bruce.
Let you know how she turns out.
It really is the worst.
All right.
The most ugly of the Bimotas, but it's also, it is a Bimota, it is special, it already works on a level.
Sure this is what you want to do?
You sure this is what you want to do? This is a pretty big project.
I see the beauty.
Well, I see the beast right now.
The DB3 is that one that looks like a washing machine, kind of. I don't have any thoughts on that. I don't like that bike. Actually, the guy who runs MV Agusta now said that designer is probably the worst designer that he's ever seen. That's his quote.
After the break, Chevelle drummer Sam Leffler sees rhythm, rhyme, and harmony in an odd duck.
And now you can start seeing some of the potential.
And back in Southern California,
what we're going to do is create a single shock right in front of the rear tire.
the action sports power couple leaves their ratted out Harley in the hands of one Roland Sam.
Sam and I have a pretty unusual relationship, I think. We are best friends, and I work for him in his band, and he hires me to build bikes.
He's got a great product, and his best product is his ideas, and he can actually make them work. And that's a hard thing to do in any part of art at all.
So this is the Bimota DB3. I convinced Sam that this is a bike we should build. The DB3 was not sexy. I don't even think it was sexy in '96.
It really is the worst, but it is a Bimota, it is special.
All Bimotas typically are, somewhat handmade, and, they're very exclusive. They're a custom motorcycle from the factory. I'm going to take the thing apart and see what's underneath that donut of a tank.
Yeah, I'll come back after you got it all tore apart, so don't bust your knuckles doing it.
All right.
See you in a bit.
See ya. Though I can't explain it exactly how I want it to people, he knows that I'll be able to come up with something that he's gonna like. I know on most of your guys' builds, you like to just toss the parts, but I think I'm gonna sell these. If I make some money on some of these parts. That wood grain, isn't that beauty? We got a good engine and a good chassis. All we gotta do is make it look better. So for starters let's get rid of all of this plastic that's covering up all of the cool stuff. This one has got a unique style of gas tank. It goes around the bars. This whole thing is one unit. There it is, the donut of a gas tank. I think we're gonna get rid of the quad exhaust. Probably go with something short, wide open, and loud. And now you can start seeing some of the potential. I saw the bike had a trellis frame, though it wasn't the tubular trellis frame of a Ducati, it was a rectangular aluminum tube frame. And the subframe is steel tubing. I think that's gonna have to change. If you have a nice rectangular tube trellis frame like this one that just ends on the front half, it kind of makes this back half look kind of strange. So I think I'm gonna try to source some aluminum that matches this rectangular tubing with the radius corners and see if we can't just finish welding up a trellis frame as it should be, all one unit. There we go. Now everything structural is aluminum. I don't buy a lot of aluminum and metal, so I like to do as much mock-up with it as I can prior, so I'm not wasting anything. I find myself laying out brackets and seat pans and everything out of cardboard first, saves on cost. The bike building thing is still kind of a new profession to me. I've been a finish carpenter for several years. That's been more of my forte. So I'm rather meticulous when it comes to angles and such. I wouldn't say it'd be dead on, just because the cardboard may be bowed a little bit. They typically come out exactly how I have them in my head. I hired out some of the aluminum work, the subframe. We fit it together and kind of got it where I wanted it. All right, Mike, so this is the cardboard mock-up that I got going for the tank and the frame. I got some aluminum stock here, but it's doesn't quite match.
I'll get the angle cut here, and then I'll cut a piece for here too. Well, I think the neat thing about this bike particularly is that it's something off the wall that nobody's tried to do before. It's like taking a Duesenberg and making a street rod out of it. Let me just hold this and then mark that tube because I want to cut that.
Welding aluminum is very difficult. You have to TIG weld it, and there's a point where it needs just the right amount of heat in order to weld, and then there's a fine line after that where it's too much heat and it just melts. So you have to know what you're doing. I don't know how to weld aluminum. I'm in process of learning, but not enough to be able to fabricate a frame that I could trust. So I have to outsource those sort of things.
Hey.
What's happening?
Doing, Mike?
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Yeah, this thing looks great. It's so cute, we're gonna want to name it. So,
This is the rectangular tubing that I found, and we got a couple pieces tacked on here so we can get an idea so I can kind of steer them in the direction before we take off.
I think there are some similarities between building a motorcycle and writing music. I think that it's probably in the process of design, having to build from scratch and not being able to see anything until the first part of it's there, you know, and just being able to sort of cut away all the things that it's not so that it is what it actually is.
You should be able to mock this thing up, get it in the jig, and make it all symmetrical and, you know, clean cuts and whatnot, and make it happen.
After the break, Analog Motorcycles twist the wrenches on their rare Bimota project bike.
I can say, look, this is what I want. Just make the aluminum look like this.
Earlier, Chevelle musician Sam Leffler and his drum tech Tony Prust saw enough in an oddball Bimota to do a cardboard mock-up for an aluminum frame. They farmed out the work to a pro, and next up, a one-of-a-kind mock of an aluminum tank to match.
To fabricate the tank out of a sheet of aluminum, also very difficult to do. I'm not that skilled in the aluminum fabrication yet, so the tank's gonna be made by Mike Ardito again. I stick with steel in what I know, and I sub out the stuff I don't know. A wood buck for me is easy because I know what it takes to make something out of wood. I've been doing it for years.
There's only about 5 guys left on this planet who can build aluminum cafe racer tanks, and 3 of them are in India. But Tony's a skilled enough carpenter to actually make a template from wood and build a tank around that. Superb.
The tank I'm trying to make here is going to resemble a Ducati Supersport tank or something similar with the high backbone, the droop side, and then I'll get some knee dents back in here and go from there. So to be able to give somebody that's going to fabricate something for me a wood version of it, you know, that way I don't have to explain and constantly be there for the process. I can say, look, this is what I want. Just make the aluminum look like this.
A metal band's touring schedule always takes precedence, and Tony's work turns from builder to band tech, leaving his wood mock-up back in Chicago in the capable hands of a different kind of metal man.
The Bimota, for one, there wasn't an aftermarket at all for that bike. There was nobody making new clip-ons or new taillights. So to start with, there was nothing that I could buy off the shelf that would fit on that bike. I could, however, buy engine components because that engine was a pretty popular engine from Ducati, the 2-valve. That, was one of the things that kind of drew me to it. Was I know that I can get that engine to be a solid running piece of machinery. So all I had to do was try to figure out a way to make all the other stuff look cool, and that was the challenge.
When I have a bike built, I want it to be by somebody who sees my idea as close as it is to their idea. And Tony's idea is, how can I make this thing go faster and corner better? At the end of the day, that's what it's supposed to do.
I want to just strip the thing of anything it doesn't need and hide as much of the stuff that it needs but doesn't look good, and leave just the essentials.
I knew I wanted clip-ons because we wanted definitely it to be, a cafe style. I told him, I said, I definitely want wire wheels.
These are actually a pre-2000 Ducati Monster model wheel that I've made work. Makes the bike look a little more retro with the spoke wheels. Kyle, what's up, buddy?
How's it going?
Oh, man. That thing looks amazing. That's probably what's going to draw the most attention to the bike when you initially see the bike. You're probably going to look at it and say, that is a funky looking tank. A lot of tanks off that era and even current tanks are more wide. The fuel goes low in the frame, whereas that is pretty much all sitting right up on top of the frame. I think that it kind of sums up what Analog is all about. It's a simple 3-color look. It's got spoke wheels that are vintage looking. It has very functional parts. Oh, look at that. Like it was made for it. I think it turned out phenomenal. And I can't wait and see Eric and Ben get on the thing and push it to the limit that they're capable of doing. I want to hear their feedback. I want to hear how I could even make it better in the future. At the same time, there's only one of those bikes, and there's only one of those gas tanks, and one of those brackets, and one of those there's only one of a lot of things on that motorcycle, and if they push it too hard and it crashes, I might cry.
After the break,
Buongiorno.
Ben and Eric Bostrom get the curtain call on Sam's new Bimota Cafe Racer.
It gives you a scary feeling, but I think she can be fixed.
Obviously, my passion is motorcycles, so anytime that I can get away from the same humdrum, monotonous task, then I'm all for it. You know, it stinks being away from your family, and, you know, I have a daughter and a wife, and, you know, when you're on the road, you miss them. It's cool to just kind of get away and do something that you like. I believe it was called the Time Warp Cafe, and walked in and I felt like I was going into some sort of a time warp. He had this great old vintage motorcycle stuff. I was hoping that I'd, you know, pull up a sheet and see a Vincent engine there that he wanted to sell or something.
Every day on tour, we're finding more things, more, you know, lifestyle-based things, and more collections of things to see, people's ideas of what motorcycling is to them.
You know, they just bring everything, you know,
Sure.
cafes in it, you know, just whatever, rat bikes.
The owner was just a great dude. Showed us around this place, and lots of cool stuff, cool helmets, great old bikes and parts, just engines and stuff stuffed in different places, and paraphernalia. And what a cool place, what a cool thing to stumble on when you're out on tour. And I think that's something that we're doing more and more. Every day we're looking for something different, something motorcycle culture, some sort of hidden away idea of a collection, whatever that collection is.
Earlier, music men Sam Leffler and Tony Prust spent time admiring an Ugly Duck Bimota DB3.
Now you can start seeing some of the potential. Get rid of all that plastic.
Skinning that duck called for cutting approach with cardboard and creativity.
They typically come out exactly how I have them in my head.
When we first started this project, we knew that we wanted to really strip down bike. I told him, I said, I definitely want wire wheels. I knew I wanted clip-ons because we wanted definitely it to be, you know, a cafe style.
But will longtime friends and music men who saw beauty where others didn't agree on Tony's vision for the Bimota DB3?
Hey, man.
Sam, there it is.
Wow.
What you think? Let it soak in? You want to let it soak in?
Yeah, I want to let it soak in. It's exactly what we talked about. Everything got really clean here. That is amazing. I think the first thing I thought of was, wow, we really hit the mark on keeping it simple. You know, I think the idea of the colors, the spoke wheels, the fact that this Bimota frame and swing arm and suspension is all the way it was, absolutely worked. The bike is lightweight, it's extremely lightweight, and it's little and ready to be thrown around. I'm excited about the Bostrom brothers riding it because, of course, you want to see if the thing that you built works.
At the same time, there's only one of those bikes, and there's only one of those gas tanks, and if they push it too hard and it crashes, I might cry.
Buongiorno.
Yeah, it's beautiful here, isn't it?
Appropriate for this motorcycle. It is. Italian. Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a perfect day at the park here. So. Well, she's beautiful. So what are we looking at?
Started out as a 1996 Bimota Mantra DB3 was the model.
A real beauty. That's a mouthful.
Bimota, obviously, you guys probably know, never really made engines. They just made chassis, and this one we kind of hacked up a little bit.
The finish is ridiculous. I mean, like, there's the control panel and everything. It's like super futuristic, but yet there's nothing to it.
Yeah, everything is pretty much aluminum and handmade.
Here he took the ugly duckling and turned it into this beautiful stallion. It takes a special eye to do that. Now, if Bimoto would have come up with this bike, this is the modern day horse that we're talking about right here. This is what I'd want to ride, you know? Tony should have been on their team.
I should have.
It's impressive because it flows like it's totally meant to be. It's very industrial, yet extremely simple. There's like very few moving parts. Of course, you get on the bike and it makes really full sound, but it's just a big tractor. Ba 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 ba.
I wouldn't say that I was nervous just yesterday. I was pretty much nervous the entire time building the bike.
We have this racetrack all to ourselves, and what you get down to is just being able to feel everything in the bike, because you're not worried about, you know, cars and traffic, and you get comfortable straight away. And pretty soon you're sliding the tires going, you know what? I feel good on a racetrack on this bike. You walk up to the bike and it's one of the best looking bikes we've had on the show. And obviously Tony knows how to build his bikes and makes them clean. In general, the bike has amazing brakes. Shift's unbelievable. Yeah, right. It is very well balanced. And then there's a certain point when you get peeled in, it's very strange. The front wants to tow under and slide the front, like it's trying to tighten up the corner. But on the fast corners, you don't want it to do that actually. So you end up with this scary feeling for most riders. But I think she can be fixed. And maybe it's just a matter of balancing the front. The rear has a lip on it, and we're allowed that little bit of stability in the back, and that holds it. And then you lean over just another degree or two, and the front starts to fold. And I think it's because the front tire shapes. But I was dragging knee on the first lap, so she's got to be doing something right. Right.
They actually ripped this thing lap after lap after lap, switching back and forth, so it never even got a chance to breathe. So if the only thing they had to complain about was a little front end steer at full tilt on a racetrack in a corner, I know the owner ain't gonna be on a track, so he would probably never even notice that. But to make it perfect, I'm gonna change that front tire out.
I give Tony an A+. The dude's got style and he's built a super clean machine. I'd stiff in the front because I like to brake late, but honestly, for the street, this bike, it does it all perfect.
They're great, man. They're awesome. They flogged it. We just beat it up the whole day. And anybody who thinks that, you know, some of these bikes aren't going to work in the real world, when they work. This worked. It worked so well, and we're just really, really happy because I want to ride the crap out of it.